All right, so I've got a check engine light that's been on since I bought this Interceptor. Car runs great, burns a bit of fuel. That may just be normal. But I decided to scan this, and I actually have known this since I bought it, but these codes here are implying that I've got bank 1, sensor 1, O2 sensors gone bad, as well as bank 2, sensor 2. So these 6 codes are all just repeating the same information here. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this guy off, unplug this, and then let's take a look under the hood. Okay. All right, so looking at the 3.7 engine, bank 1 are the back cylinders. Like that's, I think it's 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. I may be off on the cylinders on that, but I do know that bank 1 is back there, bank 2 is up here. So unfortunately, we're not dealing with bank 2 sensor 1 because that's the easiest one to get to. So on both banks, sensor 2s are down below. So you get those from underneath. Not too bad on this vehicle, especially if you have a jack. However, sensor 1 is one of the hardest ones to get to, and that is back there, right there. I'm going to try to get to it without taking off any of this manifold stuff, although even if I do, it's not the end of the world because I need to change out these valve cover gaskets anyway, and I want to do the spark plugs. In order to get to the rear, you do have to take off the intake manifold. Later, okay, so I got 2 Denso O2 sensors. Now, they come in a lot of different brands. If you go on Rock Auto, you can pay anywhere from $20 to, over $100. I went with the mid to high range, which are the Denzos, which are an OE fit for, I can't remember if they're an OE fit for this vehicle. I'll know once I get the old ones out, but they are for a lot of vehicles. So I went with the more expensive Denzos because I don't want to be replacing O2 sensors all the time. Then I've got the spark plugs for when I do that, and then you're going to want one of these. And this is, I want to say this is 7/8, or I think that's the same as 22 millimeter. I can't remember exactly, but I just bought this at the same time. This will fit most O2 sensors, and that's what you're going to want. It's got this cutout so that you can get it out with the wire attached, and then also get the new one in. Now these are, I think it's the upstream ones are expensive and the downstream ones, no, I can't remember. I think the upstreams are cheap and the downstreams are expensive, which makes sense because the downstream is doing most of the work. So just make sure you get the right ones. They look really similar, I believe, but the plugs are different. So that's what we have here. I'll come back and report when it's done. Okay, so I was able to take 1 3/8 extension and a 3/8 ratchet and able to get it on there. I haven't unplugged the O2 sensor yet. I want to make sure I can break it free first. So the only thing I'm a little worried about is getting enough leverage on here, but I got quite a bit. It just depends on how seized it is. Now it might be more helpful if this was warmed up, but I'm going to try to do it cold. Okay, so I'm having a hard time getting enough leverage. I have easy access to it, but as I pull, I can feel it kind of shifting off the boot, and I just can't get enough leverage on it. But if I did not have this manifold on here, I think it'd be a lot easier. So I think I'm gonna remove it because I also need to do these valve cover gaskets since they're leaking right there, and then also I want to change out the spark plugs. So it's a good excuse just to do it all, but I do think you could get away with it, especially if you had a stubby extension that you could put on top of your long extension. So you have a long extension stubby one, and then it brings it up to here instead of down there. I don't have one on me at the moment, but removing the manifold's not that hard. You just remove the airbox hose clamps here, remove that hose, remove that for the fuel rail, or for, I think that's for the fuel pressure regulator, fuel pressure sensor. Then there's I think a temperature sensor. Anyway, you just remove all that stuff. Then you remove these bolts, and these bolts have to be removed in a certain order. I believe it's like this one, I think it's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and then you do the side ones, and then you do this one last. And then underneath the throttle body, there's one more bolt. Then there's this hose on the back. And then you're gonna wanna pop off to get the, if you're gonna do the valve covers too, you're gonna unplug all of the spark plug. Well, you gotta pull the ignition coils out, and then pull the harnesses back to this point, and then fold it over. I'm gonna try to reuse the intake manifold gasket, but if it doesn't take and I need to change it, at least it's not that hard to get back to it. If I was, planning this out ahead of time, I would have gotten an intake manifold gasket, but all I did was get the valve cover gaskets. Anyway, if you are just doing your O2 sensors and you get to this point where I'm at and you can't get it right there, you should be able to just take this off. I'm just gonna take it a step further and do these while I'm at it, because it's a nice day and I don't know how many more of these we'll have before winter. So I'm gonna keep going. All right, I got the intake manifold off. I'm just left with these 6 holes, which have some oil. Well, not really much. Yeah, a little bit of oil, a little bit blow by going on. So good idea to change out this gasket anyway. I'm probably gonna put it back on for now because I think it's about 2 weeks out. Get it shipped up here to Alaska. Now, underneath the throttle body, that's where that one bolt is. Mine was missing. So somebody's changed out this gasket before. This guy right here, these tabs, when you're removing it, you depress these 2 tabs, and then you slide the screen clip that way, and that's how it comes off. Now you can see how much space I have to get down to this sensor now. Should be no problem. I should be able to get a lot of evenly distributed leverage now. But before I do anything, I'm gonna tuck paper towels into these holes, so that debris does not fall into them. It's just cheap insurance policy. So I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna start cranking on it. Okay, so about that it out, what made it a lot easier. So a hard thing with this is that there's these AC lines and you don't want to put a lot of pressure on these. You can see where I was rubbing against them a little bit. So you kind of want to keep a hand supporting it like this, because otherwise when you put leverage on this, it's going to push into these lines. It was really stuck. So what I ended up doing was taking just another 3/8 extension with a big socket, sliding it on the end there. And that way I could have one hand for leverage and the other hand to support the top like this. And it's come out, but it was a real bear. But it's about out now. Okay, so on bank 1, sensor 2, we've established that this one up top, this plug down to that sensor, is bank 2, sensor 1. But bank 2, sensor 2 is, so this is bank 2, sensor 1. Bank 2, sensor 2 is down below, but it's actually really easy to get to. I didn't even have to jack up the car. So all I gotta do is find the oil filter. I already unplugged it. So you find the oil filter. Where is it? I'm trying to get the camera on it. There it is. There's the oil filter. And then you'll see the exhaust pipe, and then right up from the exhaust pipe, the sensor. You just reach up here, and the plug's up there. I've already unplugged it though. And I was able to get a socket, this socket, on like that. And then I was able to get my ratchet down, so it was sticking down like this. And then I was able to put my foot and hold onto the bumper and just push with my foot, and I broke it free. It takes a lot of leverage to get these O2 sensors out, because they really seize in there sometimes. So I'm just unthreading it. There we go. Now I do have dents. From what I can tell, there's no cracks or leaks though, and it's not dented enough to really restrict flow as far as I can tell. It's already dented down there too. These cops, they take these suckers off road or do all sorts of crazy stuff with them, so kind of to be expected. Might be a good thing to inspect before you buy one. Okay, so here's the old one, and there's the plug. So it's a female end. To compare it with this new one, you can tell that that is the same plug, right? And then just want to look at the tip. Now this one does have more holes in it, but I'm assuming that's not a problem. It's just a different brand, I guess. But yeah, it's the same 3 wires. So actually that's 4 wires. Is that 4 wires? Yeah, it's 4 wires. There's 2 black. Okay. And then it comes with this little anti-seize. I think that's more of a, it's like an anti-seize / gasket, so you don't get leaks through your port. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and kind of conservatively put this on the threads, and then just go ahead and thread it back in, plug it in, and then sensor 2 on bank 2 will be finished. Okay, so I've got my my copper compound on there. If I can get to focus. Wow. Okay. And a little bit goes a long way. I thought I didn't do that much, and then I ended up doing a lot after I kind of smeared it. Try to avoid getting it on the contact or on the probe. I've probably got a little bit, but okay. Then we're just gonna. Sorry, just gonna flip the angle on you. Just gonna put it in there, straight in. Just get it started. All right. There. Got the light kind of hard to see. But there it is. Started. Sweet. So we're gonna be fighting the plug and the wire up until we get it snugged. But once again, that's why you want one of these sockets. Now I did undo the zip tie, or the little twisty tie that was holding the cable together, but in hindsight I probably should have left that on just so it was less wire flailing around. Okay, I think right there is where we want it. So this is bank 2, sensor 2. Now back there where the pipe Y's, can't kind of see it. I don't think you can see the sensor, but that's where bank 2 is gonna, or bank 1 sensor 2 is gonna be. You'll probably have to jack up the car, or at least get to it from behind that wheel. So anyway, this is pretty much all you need to see here. I'm gonna go ahead and cinch it down and then plug it in. The harness is up there. It's kind of a weird angle, especially without it being jacked up. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, so we've got our new O2 sensor plugged in, fully installed. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and continue. I'm gonna start with this valve cover, and then we'll do the back one, see how it goes. But then, you know, if you're not gonna do that, you can go ahead and skip forward, and then I'll be putting it all back together and clearing the codes and taking it for a test run. But that's, you know, the hard part. If you have to do bank 2 sensor 1 or bank 1 sensor 2, just know that if you're, you know, sensor 1 couldn't be any easier on bank 2. And on bank 1 sensor 1, go behind the tire, and you can kind of see it. I think some people take off the tire. There it is, right there. So if you take off the tire, you should get straight access. Otherwise, you may be able to get it from underneath. But it looks like if you take off the tire and go through right above the, or right to the side of the CV shaft, it looks like it'll be pretty easy. But probably that would be maybe the hardest one, because you have to take the tire off and jack it up, where everything else you don't have to. So these 3.7 engines are fantastic to work on. You know, I can't speak for anything with the timing chain, or anything behind the timing cover. Like, I know the water pump's common on these, but other than that, from what I hear, they're pretty bulletproof, and so far very pleased on how easy they are to work on. All right, we got the front cover off. The front cover can prove a little difficult because of this wire, which is a single wire sensor. I'm assuming it's got a framed ground, so it's single wire. It's this one right here. If you peel this back a little bit, you can see that it's just a single little light. It's a gray wire, and it goes down towards the alternator. Not quite sure where it goes, but you can't really get to it to unplug it. I can't even see the plug, nor can I feel it. So what I did was just unplugged these injector lines, and then there's a ground cable that goes into the block right here, and then the wire goes up here, and then it grounds up here. So I just, now that's where the grounds were. I just unbolted it, flopped it forward. I'm trying to avoid getting dirt and crap in here. In hindsight, I should have blown this all off, cleaned it or something first, but it wasn't too bad, and I'm just gonna be really careful. When I took out the coils, part of them did break off inside the boots. The boots popped off at least. So if I can fish those out and put them back on, that'd be great. Otherwise, I might be going down the road and getting a couple new ignition coils, but not the end of the world. Yeah, so now we can just, we're gonna wanna clean up our mating surface. Notice there's some engine RTV. You're gonna wanna scrape that off and put a new dab on it before you put your new gasket on. But those are the only two spots. Right there where the timing cover meets the head. So we come back over here, and there is our gaskets, and these gaskets are shot. They're pretty gnarly. So we've got our main one here, which the replacements are blue, and then you're gonna have these for the variable timing sensors, and these, I think these just come out with pressure. They look like they'll come out. Maybe tap them from the top with a screwdriver. Just careful not to do any tapping on the actual plastic valve cover. And then we've got 3 as well for the ignition coils, and then they have some for each of these for these boots that go on the bolts, and that's really all there is to it. So I'm gonna do that. All right, so we got it all put back together. A couple things to note on when you're changing the valve covers is you've got to pound out these guys for the variable timing solenoids, or whatever you call those. You got to be really careful, because there's really only one way that I know of to take them out, and that's by getting one of these sockets. The guy was using this one that fit just perfectly over, obviously these are unplugged, and taken out of the vehicle, and then you hammer those out. Well, I managed to crack both of them, so I fixed the crack with JB Weld over there. And right there. When you have this off, it's a good time to look at the timing chain, see if there's no excess slack. You don't get a really good view, but you can kind of see top of the chain guides, so it's good to look at those, see if they're broken. I also, check my air filter and transmission fluid, but you can check those anytime. And then when you're putting everything back together, just make sure everything's seated down real good. There's the video for a Ford Flex 3.5 online. I'll link in the description a more detailed version on how to get to all this. It only does the rear head gasket, or the rear valve cover gasket, but it's pretty much the same thing for this, other than this wire that's in the way. But it turns out the 3.5 is identical, so same intake manifold and everything, at least as far as the bolts. I don't know if they're the same part numbers, but anyway, so that's a really good video. I would reference that. Did a little better job than I did. Okay, so now we're just gonna go ahead and erase all the codes. Okay, so my check engine light's now off. Now that doesn't mean it's gonna stay off. because it usually takes a couple cycles.